So, soft skills in 21st century education. This presentation is very different from all the others that you will see. Why? Because it starts from an external viewpoint. We start from the perspective of political and educational framework, whereas the other presentation we start from an internal perspective of the learner and the teacher. So, but now we start with what the world is telling us about the educational needs. So we decided to have this presentation as the first one as a sort of framework in understanding the world we live in and the education that is needed in the world we are living now. So several presentations that I saw about education and current education models starts with the following sentence, say the world has changed, but education has not changed with it. I'm sure you heard a lot about this. The world has indeed completely changed in the last 100 years on different levels, geographically, socially, economically, globally, but also on the intimate sphere of life. Communication has changed, family has changed, models have changed, even in the last 50 years. If we look at this picture, we cannot recognize much. However, schools remain quite the same, and this kind of picture are quite common, and I'm sure every one of you has seen this kind of comparison between 19th century's education and current education, and in the majority of cases we see that there is not much change. Now, all the persons that are present here tend to be part of innovative schools or schools with or have a very open-minded or they are very progressive educators. So you might not see it this way, but unfortunately many researchers that see that the educational setting remains quite the same. So, there is indeed a discrepancy between the fast-changing world and inertia of education system in general terms. What we would do with this presentation is trying to make a little step further and trying to understand the reason of this diachronicity. Because only if we understand the reason of these two different speeds, then we can act. And in the next days, we will try to see together how democratic education could offer one of the possible solutions to fill this gap between the speed of the world and the slow change of education and the not ability of education to be at the same speed. So I'm going to take a standpoint of political economists and global, let's say, analysts. What those people say is that we live in a world that is called VUCA. Have you ever heard about this acronym? So it's getting more and more and more recurrent. It means volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. So basically, those are the four definitions that identify the current world nowadays, from mostly economists, but also historians are trying to understand that. That's the basic outline. So a world that's uncertain, that's not easy to grasp, very complex and ambiguous in the sense that trying to grasp the truth, it's not easy. Trying to grasp real news and communication, it gets really ambiguous. if we think about jobs and profession, we know that most of the future job and profession will not be the ones that have been needed for the last centuries. But because of this uncertainty and complexity, we don't have the tools at the moment to know and identify what our future will look like. So that's the scenario of this uncertainty towards we are leading to. Artificial intelligence is definitely one of the most powerful examples of that. So when I was in the airport yesterday, there were magazines saying, oh, we know that probably artificial intelligence is going to detect animal language and let us understand what animals are saying. Why it's a powerful example? Because we don't know what artificial intelligence will let us do. There is no know about that because it's going to a fast speed that it's too fast for us to understand. And we don't have the ethical, philosophical also skills to put a link to this or see what are the boundaries or challenge ourselves of what could be the future. You probably are familiar with the book of Klaus Schwab, is the founder of the World Economic Forum. He wrote the fourth industrial revolution already in 2016, saying that we are facing a fourth revolution. And the fourth revolution is the revolution of the computer, the machine, and the computer technology. What he says, it's a really dystopic future that he is showing us, in which he's quite clear that there will be a potential exclusion, including exclusion from sector, market, jobs, due to artificial intelligence, but there's going to be an increasing inequity of information, of resources, and of the availability. So inequality among people is going to be augmented, and conflict might rise. Okay, so this is what all the international economists are looking at and saying it's already now. So it's not in 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. It's now. That's what is happening. And since ChatGPT and artificial intelligence started 1 month ago to be free on all platforms, we already know that in 4 weeks everything is changing and the results are completely different from what it was expected. So the way to challenge these dystopic scenarios is trying to find skills that enable collaboration instead of competition, and coexistence instead of conflict, inclusion rather than exclusion, equity instead of inequality, both for individuals and organizations. So if this is the general scenarios that international relations experts and economists and historians are telling us, as educators and teachers, we need to answer this question: how can education address this volatile world? The same experts and international organizations agree that the key is building effective transversal competencies integrated into lifelong learning processes. And so now we are going to see what are those transversal competencies that are everywhere saying that's the key for the future, for students to learn. When we talk about transversal competencies, synonyms are soft skills, key competencies, 21st century skills, and global competencies. So those names tend to be used as synonyms. Some of them have some different, slightly different meanings, but we could consider that they all mean the same. they're considered the cornerstone for personal development of person by the EU, by the UNESCO, and the fundamental for applying any hard knowledge. Why? Because thanks to transversal competences, we can make sense of the complex changes and participate of the change of the society as active actors, so not just passively receiving the changes. At the same time, we could be equipped to control our own life, our own destiny, rather than be controlled by external forces. And also for those people that see that the fourth industrial revolution sounds some dystopic future I really don't want to live in, it stands to the transversal competences that you can fight the social and political marginalization that might be out there, and also position yourself critically towards this fourth industrial revolution future. So, what soft skills are? Broadly speaking, soft skills are all transversal skills that are not typical of one sector, of one discipline, but they are applicable to all professions. So they are not restricted to a specific field. And so that's the opposite of hard skills. Hard skills are skills specific of an individual profession. So could you give me, for instance, an example of a soft skill? So a skill that's...
Empathy.
Empathy? Communication?
Intuition.
Intuition? Something more?
Listening. Communication.
Yeah. Active listening, yeah. Others?
Being able to create a group.
Yeah, so social connection, interaction. Creativity. Others?
Conflict management.
Mm-hmm.
Problem solving.
Problem solving.
Calmness.
What?
Calm.
Calm.
The ability to reach, to stay in a state of calmness, peaceful.
Mindfulness.
Let's see if we have something similar. Okay, but we have an idea of what we are talking about. So those are skills that are in every sector, different to learning to do math or learning how, how to read in one specific language or how to play an instrument. That's specific to one sector. Soft skills have therefore the following characteristics. They are transferable across domains, geographies, works, and life contexts. But be careful, because there could be some cultural differences to some of those competences that we will see later on. So yes, they are transferable, but sometimes we need to have some cultural awareness. Not all culture understand communication in the same way, critical thinking in the same way, etc. They are typically related to social and interpersonal relations. They are cross-curricular in training and education. Communication is the key element in manifesting and evidencing transversal skills. Because if they are not communicated explicitly, they can remain unrecognized. They are essential tools in accelerating change that we said. They can be observed, evidenced, and developed. But most of them are easier to develop in childhood rather than in adulthood. And that's key for what we will see later on and in this week. And this is a bit different from hard skills. We know Peter Gray always says there is no hard competence that you cannot learn in every stage of your life besides learning a language as a mother tongue language. All the other hard skills you can learn at whatever stage of life. So you don't need to start knowing perfectly history at 6 years old, because you can catch up at every moment of your life. Here the viewpoint is a little bit different. Here experts say that the earlier you learn soft skills, the better it is, because later in adulthood it becomes a bit more tricky. Soft skills are learned through experience and development. Okay, so it's not just doing an exercise, but you need to live and learn and experience those skills. And in their development, they have a symbiotic relationship with improved self-awareness and self-knowledge. This is the sort of metacognition of soft skills. So you not only have to learn this skill, but you need to have an awareness of yourself about that. So there's two levels in this sense. Different international organizations have been creating lists of soft skills or 21st century skills in the last 20 years. So there is not one only list about them. I like this wheel very much because it seems very comprehensive. And so here we have some that are more about being an engaged thinker, so critical thinking and problem solving, creativity and innovation. Some about more the ethical sphere of life, so social responsibility and cultural, global and environmental awareness, communication, digital literacy, lifelong learning, self-direction and personal management, collaboration and leadership. Some others sum them up in critical thinking, citizenship, growth mindset, communication, creativity, collaboration. So, if you look at UNESCO, if you look at the EU, if you look at different international economy publication, US OECD, you can find different set of 21st century skills. But an analysis of a range of high-profile international and transnational sources from international organizations reveals a broad emerging consensus on a common core of 10 transversal skills. So this could encompass more or less all. So problem solving, adaptability, spirit of initiative, learning to learn, cultural awareness, resilience, social and emotional intelligence, creativity, critical thinking, and digital competences. Every year, the World Economic Forum makes a report of what are the most needed skills in the year. And so here we have the same 10, but sometimes they scale more or less according to years. But so, and there could be a different wording, but the concept is there. So in 2020, we had complex problem solving as the first one, then critical thinking, creativity, people management, coordination with others, emotional intelligence, decision making, service orientation, negotiation, and cognitive flexibility. It's interesting because we don't have digital skills here. Normally it's always there. So, whoever you hear that works in jobs in management and in international organization will tell you that the future jobs would need skills that are soft skills. Okay, so For instance, in 2017, Oxford University predicts that in 2030, social skills will become the most high-valued skills, as artificial intelligence and machine perform a wide range of tasks. So a lot of hard skills will be substituted by artificial intelligence, whereas soft skills cannot. And so this is a very big change. And so thanks to those soft skills that we can adapt continuously and be flexible in different world and contexts. This doesn't mean that we need to agree with the fact that artificial intelligence will substitute jobs. This doesn't mean that we need to take that standpoint. What I'm trying to say here is that there is a reality that we need to acknowledge, even if for some of us it's not the best future that we might imagine, but at the same time, the kind of skills that are needed to be promoted in the future are the same skills that us as educators, or people that work with children, realize that are the skills needed for human beings to feel good with themselves, feel good with the others, and feel connected with the world. So that's a very fundamental aspect, that not only we try to promote those skills because are needed in the job market, but because we know that such a soft skills and personal skills are important for children to develop a good sense of themselves and being anchored with themselves, being good with others, and have a successful life in the world. And so more and more research identified that there is a disconnection between the worlds of the education and employment. And the reason is because education at the moment is mostly focused on hard skills, whereas employment and real life is more focused on soft skills, more and more. So, even though I'm saying that world is changing and everything seems quite new, soft skills is absolutely not a new concept, okay? So already some educators in the 1929 were starting to develop concept as lifelong learning. So we need to keep continuous learning in all our life. In the 70s, UNESCO began to promote some reports, like the report of Learning Society, which I find this really interesting. So already in the 70s, the idea that a society needs to be a collective learning agent for change. And then there is the historic report in the 1996 from UNESCO, where there is the shift from teaching to learning. And now we see that we are in a process in which there is another shift from learning to developing. And already in that report, Education in the 21st Century, we identify 4 pillars of education. So it's not education before it was just teaching someone something. Here we have a radical change. Education becomes learning to live together, learning to be, learning to know, and learning to do. So before it was just learning to know, so having cognitive skills. And then it became learning to live with others, learning to be, and learning to do. So already in 1996 we see this radical shift. This is these 4 pillars that I was mentioning and how they are clustered in skills and in different subject areas that were suggested to develop. So it's interesting because before it was just, it was just learning to know, and then it became all this other set of skills. The EU has been receptive to what UNESCO was saying, and 10 years after, the EU promoted a recommendation on key competences for lifelong learning. Of these key competences, some of them remain sort of traditional, basic knowledge. We have mathematical and communication in mother tongue. We should have a third one, I don't see. And communication in foreign language, no, just two, sorry. 2 of them are still hard skills, 6 of them are soft skills. So a radical change that the EU is promoting. And to underpin those, so cultural awareness, sense of initiative, civic and social competences, learning to learn, digital competences, math, communication in foreign languages and communication in mother languages. And the EU is recommending seven transversal themes in order to support those 8 competences. Creativity, critical thinking, problem solving, risk assessment, initiative, decision making, and constructive and management of feelings. So the EU is sending recommendations to nation states since 2006 to promote those 7 areas. And for every of the key competences, the EU developed some frameworks that explain how teachers should, could, or develop those competences. The ones that are more related to democratic education are probably the life competence and the citizenship competences, which are actually one of the basic reasoning behind this project. It was like, how can democratic education help develop what the EU is asking for and that member state cannot reach? So basically the application of life competences, so the competences to be with us, ourselves, and to be with others, and citizenship competences. Those documents are online, free, public, and they are super interesting to read. It's our extremely detailed papers that the EU is providing to teachers around Europe, saying those are the skills needed. There is a big gap. We analyze that at the national level, teachers don't manage to pass those skills to children. So they are proposing some suggestions, but they still see that there is a lack of methods and instruments to promote soft skills. So to sum up, despite the need of future soft skills to face the volatile, uncertain, and complex, ambiguous coming ages, despite the fact that research confirmed that 75% of long-term job success results from soft skills and only 25% from technical skills. And despite the importance of developing soft skills at a younger age, the reality is that on average, only the 10% of the curriculum of European schools is based on soft skills. The remaining 90% is based on hard skills. So I don't know if you resonate with that. We are talking about an average around Europe. And once again, I don't think that you are the classical example of classical education, but that's what statistics say. 90% is still hard skill, and 10% is soft skills. So, what I want to ask you now is, why do you think that soft skills are so underdeveloped in school education?
Because they make the children free.
a sort of systematic way of
Yeah,
deciding not to.
it's one point, it's
Mhm.
not everything, but could be one point.
Another part of the teachers are not prepared to teach this way.
Mhm.
They don't
Teachers are not prepared.
skills. Teachers doesn't have soft skills like those.
Yeah. Do you all hear what she said? That she's saying that teachers themselves, they don't have soft skills, so it's very hard to transfer skills that you don't have. Yes?
So, I
Sorry,
think,
can you just please?
so,
Yes, thanks.
I think that a big part of the reason is because in the past, hard skills were a lot more important than they are now, I think. So, because our education system changes so slow, we're still like stuck in the old system, in which hard skills are more present and more important. So, again, because changing the education happens very slow, we can't adapt the need of soft skills in the modern age to the schools, the teaching. The schools.
Okay, so sort of path dependency from the past.
Yeah, I think it could be related.
Because in Italy, we are used to measure the skills. And how do you measure soft skills?
Evaluation. Good point. Yeah.
I think because they are more difficult to be defined. I mean, it's very difficult to find a definition of empathy or of intuition, and we need to find a definition to create a program, to create a curriculum.
Good point. Thanks. Anything else?
Resourcing, essentially human resources in teaching. Soft skills usually kind of put off if one too many presentations, and we are lacking human resources to really provide this type of education for people.
Which kind of resource?
Human resources mainly. The number of teachers, small group constellations. It's much easier, cheaper to have one too many presentations in school rather than small group soft skills.
No.
I want to add what she said about teachers and not prepared. The soft skills, a lot of them are mainly taught. They can be you can make a presentation about them or lecture, but in most of the part they are taught by example and role models. And if teachers cannot role model empathy or communication or active listening or even creativity or how it's fun to learn, if they cannot show it in practice, they can have a presentation in theory about what's it, and they can even try to lead some lessons and activities, but if they are not themselves a role model of what is this, it's not going to work.
Yeah, to add to Maggie, I want to say that we don't have the system of teaching this kind of skills to teachers. Like a systematic change needs to take place.
Thank you. Ah, I think we got everything that I listed here. Thanks. So some possible reasons that I've come up with, but we can put more in the list. It's important because once we know the reason, then we can find a solution. So this reasoning, it's the basic. And that's why we are having this training as the first one. First one, yes, they are super difficult to be evaluated. We are used to an educational system that is based on evaluation, okay? Not only grading, but different way of evaluating just to progress. And hard skills are super easy to be evaluated. When it's about soft skills, it's much more complex. So how do you evaluate empathy? So there are so many studies that are pointing in that direction that an evaluation is possible, but then we will see in the future slide if that's actually the way we want to go. But yes, super difficult to re-evaluate it at the moment. So for teachers, that's really like teachers that have to evaluate because at the end they have to provide grades at the end of the year. Well, for them it's impossible to change the curriculum into more soft skill content. Then what we said is that it's difficult for adults to learn. As we said before, a lot of studies point on the fact that the more you age, the difficult it is to change some attitudes and behavior that you have. I mean, there is this concept of growth mindset that it's contradictory. So it says that our mind can grow at any moment, and we can always improve. But you need to exercise your brain as a gym. So if you don't do that and you start when you are 50, it takes time. So there is a problem of model. There is a problem of a teacher that might not have the soft skills, and it's very difficult, as you were saying, them to transmit those skills. Another problem is that those are very difficult skills to be practiced for words. Some of them needs to believe in practice in the word. The other problem is that soft skills involve a long-term process. So not short results, like I'm giving you a math problem and you can resolve it now. Some of them entails a very long process, so not short-term results. And we are used to be in an education system that is based on short-term results. They cannot be easily taught except through highly interactive learning processes. So again, it's interaction, learning process, and long-term processes. And so it's also difficult to plan the teaching of those skills because they are based on interaction, they are based on, and so they have some incredible effects that can happen. So for a teacher that is used to have a clear plan of the day, having something that might be not, I don't know when we have a class on critical thinking what will happen because it's a lot based on the person that are in the class. This unpredictability create a complexity for teacher. And therefore, learning doesn't depend solely on the person that learns, but it's influenced by different factors that make the educational process harder and unpredictable. And so then, as Mattel was saying, soft skills are more difficult to define, even though we are going through a process of define more and more. But compared to classical skills, they are much more difficult to define. So this makes teaching much more challenging. But if we try to abstract even more, the major obstacle is probably the fact that most schools try to transmit soft skills using the same method that they use for teaching hard skills. And this, unfortunately, it doesn't work because it's a completely set of skills, as we saw before. And that's why we say that traditional education has not been able to keep pace with this multifaceted transformation that is focused on knowledge, cognitive and technical skills, whereas now we need a completely new model of teaching. And that's why your report shows that we need to reimagine new ways of teaching, and alternative education paradigms needs to be put in place in order to transfer soft skills to students. So I want to provide just two examples. One, it's about evaluation of competences, as we said. The major problem, for instance, in citizenship competences, and I bring this example because I think it's key in democratic education, when teachers want to put in practice citizenship competences, they need to provide evaluation. But it's fine, for them it's really hard to evaluate acquisition of these skills compared to evaluate math, English, or science. Now, one way to go, and it's the way that it's happening now, is that psychologists, together with Organization for Economic Cooperation, are finding a way of evaluating in the same way we evaluate hard skills. For instance, well, we don't grade this way, but we can have in the classroom a psychologist that can evaluate your level of understanding of critical thinking. And so we can put from 0 to 10 a grade. So this is one way the system is, school analysts are going. So trying to find the same kind of grid of evaluation that we're using for hard skill, but let's say making it more sophisticated so that they can be implemented in soft skills. Unfortunately, this leads to a trap, so to a no-go, because soft skills cannot be evaluated because of their being exactly in the same way. So we need to find solutions that are different. Could be a self-assessment, could be a group work. We have to be creative, but we cannot use the same methodologies used until now. Otherwise, we do our work that is contrary of what we are transmitting. For instance, transmitting critical thinking, but at the same time putting under pressure our students because it's evaluated by a psychologist in the class. And the second example is again on the EU recommendation on citizenship competences. It's quite interesting. If you read the report, it's such a beautiful piece of description of what citizenship is, what are the values that we need to provide to our students, what are the competence and the skills, and how important it is. But then, in order for children to be democratic actor in a democratic world, but then when it's a matter of doing practices it, they are actually saying, okay, but we can mimic democracy, we can do role play with students, we can enact, we can do theater and then teaching democracy through theater, we can do civil education classes. But it's still a teaching way that is very similar to hard skills. They don't say, okay, we take decision together so that children can experience and live what a citizenship skill is. It's just, they just use the model of the education of frontal that's regarding to hard skills. And this doesn't work. And to finish, I was just want to point out that not only does recent studies see that soft skills are fundamental, but they also see that global competencies are essential foundation for the successful deployment of capabilities and cognitive skills. Therefore, soft skills are a precondition for the effective acquisition of hard skills. It means that if you, as a person, don't hone the soft skills, it's very hard that you will acquire effectively hard skills. You can get notions, but you might forget them very soon because you haven't internalized them with the personal and social competences. So, what we have been reflecting during this presentation is the need, we have been talking and reflecting on the need of soft skills as central as an external factor, okay, as the world, what the world will need, what the future market would need, is the importance for students to acquire more and more soft skills. And we have been also reflecting on what are the needs in the education in order to promote soft skills. But what we will do in the next days is to see how democratic education could be seen as an education model to transmit those soft skills acquisition to students. So stay tuned for the next presentations.